Have you ever wondered how a plastic bottle tossed into the ocean can affect a family living in poverty thousands of miles away? We live in a world where our actions echo far beyond our immediate surroundings. Two of the most pressing issues we face today are plastic pollution and global poverty. On the surface, it might seem like these are two separate problems, but in reality, they are deeply interconnected. Every year, millions of tons of plastic waste find their way into our oceans, causing untold harm to marine life and the environment. Meanwhile, nearly half the world's population lives on less than $2.50 a day. The link? Plastic pollution often disproportionately affects impoverished communities, exacerbating their struggle and making it even harder for them to rise out of poverty. To understand this connection, we need to delve into the heart of these issues. Plastic pollution is a pressing issue that has been escalating at an alarming rate, a problem not confined to any one region. Plastic pollution is a global catastrophe that's been growing exponentially. So, what exactly is plastic pollution? It's the accumulation of plastic products in our environment that adversely affects wildlife habitat, and humans. The plastic that litters our lands and oceans is more than just an eyesore. It introduces dangerous chemicals into our ecosystems, threatening a wide range of species, from tiny plankton to massive whales. Now, you might be wondering, how did we end up here? The answer is simple: overconsumption and improper disposal. As societies across the globe have grown more affluent, so too has our reliance on convenient, disposable plastic goods. From plastic bags to toothbrushes, we've become a throwaway culture. And while our recycling efforts have increased, they're not keeping pace with our consumption. That's leading to vast amounts of plastic waste that often ends up in our oceans or landfills. The environmental impact of plastic pollution is staggering. It can take hundreds, if not thousands of years for plastic to break down. In the meantime, it's wreaking havoc on our natural world, choking our waterways and killing wildlife. And the problem is only getting worse. Every year, millions of metric tons of plastic are dumped into our oceans, creating vast garbage patches that disrupt marine ecosystems and harm aquatic life. But plastic pollution isn't just an environmental issue, it's a human one too. You see, this global problem hits impoverished communities the hardest. In many developing countries, waste management systems are inadequate or non-existent. This means that plastic waste often ends up in public spaces, creating health hazards and exacerbating poverty. Imagine living in a community where plastic waste is a constant presence, contaminating your water, your food, and your air. It's not just the environment that suffers when plastic pollution runs rampant, but also those who can least afford to bear the burden. Poverty, a complex issue that affects millions of people worldwide, is deeply intertwined with plastic pollution. Imagine a colossal spider's web with poverty at its heart. The strands representing the various factors that bind people in a cycle of poverty. These strands include lack of education, inadequate healthcare, scarce employment opportunities, and more. Each strand is a hurdle, making it increasingly difficult for those caught in the web to break free. Now let's delve deeper into the nature of poverty. Poverty is not just about being unable to meet the material needs of life. It's about not having the resources to meet basic needs or to enjoy a decent standard of living. It's about the lack of opportunities to better one's life. It's about living one day at a time, with the constant fear of what the next day might bring. The causes of poverty are multifaceted and interconnected. They include systemic issues like economic inequality and social discrimination. Individual circumstances like illness or disability can also push people into poverty. And in many parts of the world, conflict and political instability too play a significant role. The impacts of poverty are devastating. It affects every aspect of a person's life, their health, education, and overall well-being. It stifles their potential and robs them of their dignity. Now, let's bring plastic pollution into the picture. Plastic pollution exacerbates the cycle of poverty, particularly in developing countries. It pollutes their natural resources, making them unfit for use. It affects their health, leading to increased medical expenses and loss of productivity. It also hampers tourism, a significant source of income for many of these countries. The cycle of poverty is vicious and relentless, and when combined with the environmental crisis of plastic pollution, the situation becomes even more dire. The strands of the web become thicker, stickier, and more complex, making it harder for those trapped to break free. And so the cycle continues, each factor feeding into and exacerbating the other. So how exactly do these two global issues intertwine? You see, the tentacles of plastic pollution and global poverty reach across the world, weaving a complex web of cause and effect. The relationship between these two issues is not straightforward, but they are deeply interconnected in ways that exacerbate each other, creating a vicious cycle that's hard to break. Firstly, let's consider the impact of plastic pollution on those living in poverty. Many impoverished communities around the globe depend on natural resources for their livelihood. Whether it's fishing in the oceans or farming on the land, these resources are their lifeline. But as plastic continues to infiltrate these environments, it's causing significant damage. Fish are ingesting microplastics, crops are being suffocated by plastic waste, and water sources are becoming contaminated. This not only threatens the health of these communities, but also their sources of income and food, pushing them deeper into the clutches of poverty. On the other hand, poverty can inadvertently contribute to plastic pollution. In many low-income areas, waste management systems are often inadequate or non-existent. Without proper waste disposal and recycling facilities, people are left with no choice but to discard their waste in the only ways available to them, which often involve dumping it in rivers or burning it in open fires. Both of these methods result in plastic entering our environment, contributing to the global problem of plastic pollution. Moreover, in places where poverty is rampant, single-use plastics are often the cheapest and most accessible option for storing and transporting goods. This reliance on plastic perpetuates the pollution problem, but it also underscores the lack of affordable, sustainable alternatives available to these communities. In essence, plastic pollution and global poverty are two sides of the same coin. They feed off each other, creating a cycle that's hard to break. But it's not an impossible task. By understanding the interconnection between these issues, we can start to devise comprehensive solutions that address both problems. It's clear that these issues are interconnected, and tackling them requires a unified approach. We must become informed, aware advocates. This isn't just about recycling more or donating to charities. It's about changing our habits and choices. It's about supporting companies and policies that prioritize sustainability and social equity. It's about standing up for a world where both people and the planet can thrive. Remember, every action counts, and together we can make a difference in the fight against plastic pollution and global poverty.